it's Shakespeare's African play.
Get rid of a leader. Who do you put in its place? Is it going to be a dictator?
It is a fantastic political thriller.
The violent political machinations, they're not just about personality. This is life and death.
Nelson Mandela had this copy of Shakespeare on Robben Island. It belonged to one of the Indian ANC inmates called Sonny Venkaratnam. Mandela himself had underlined these lines of Julius Caesar. Cowards die many times before their deaths. The valiant never taste of death but once. It seems to me most strange that men should fear, seeing that death, a necessary end, will come when it will come. John Carney said to me, I said to him, why is this play so often done in Africa? Why did Julius Nyerere, the first president of Tanzania, translate it into Swahili? And he said, it's Shakespeare's African play. That really struck a chord with me. It made me think of how the play had resonated for Mandela, how the play must have said something to Julius Nyerere. Countries all over Africa from the late 50s, early 60s were getting rid of the yoke of the colonial rule, gaining independence, and how that independence led people to seize power on certain occasions or pull power to themselves in one-party states, how frequently those dictators were overthrown, how the regime change turned often into civil war.
Most politics happen over a very long sweep of history, particularly in the West. And here we have, within hours, within days, a complete change of regime, a vacuum, and a filling in of that vacuum by something that we think is probably a bit more disturbing than what went before. We don't get to see that play out, but we get an idea that...
I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him.
You go to Julius Caesar, and the one thing you know is that Julius Caesar is going to be assassinated. It's probably the single most famous event of the ancient world. And I had always been intrigued by how it seemed like the second half was a dying fall. This stayed with me, this kind of ate at my innards a bit, and I needed to find a way in which somehow the second half would be the climax, not the anticlimax. Watching the Arab Spring unfold, the question was not were they going to get rid of Gaddafi, say. The question was what would replace Gaddafi? What happens next? In Libya, in Tunisia, in Syria, what happens next? And so that gave us a completely different focus to the second half of the play.
The other thing that we get that you can't get from a Western setting is the sense that the crowd rules. That if the crowd decides they're going to go out and they're going to tear down the objects of power, they're going to turn down the buildings of power, they can do that.
Romans.
And they have the power to do that. Whereas I don't think we really have that in the West. We can smash a few windows and we can, get a few trainers. But the actual focused, politicized crowd is not a very Western idea.
I always say a good idea fires on 4 cylinders. This one just seems to be firing on all 4 of them. There's something about the actors that we've got, the context of the play itself. There's quite a lot to do. We have to rehearse it, film it, go back into rehearsal, open it in the theatre, to the West End, take it on tour, and yeah, so there's quite a lot on my plate. In fact, that reminds me, I think I better go.